Welcome to Deep Look, Ultiworld's weekly radio show about the current state of Ultimate. I'm the host and the editor, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me is Ultiworld senior editor, Keith Raynor. Regionals weekend number 1, all wrapped up. 44 of the 48 bids have been handed out, earned, I should say. And we have got a lot to talk about today, Keith, because although there was plenty that was expected, there was also some pretty huge surprises.
There were. And I think we kind of thought this was going to be a chalkier regionals weekend. Every regionals weekend is going to be a surprise. You know, the biggest shock would have been absolutely nothing going awry for anybody. So we knew something would happen, but I think we both had tempered expectations for what this weekend could bring. There were a couple places of spots where it looked like it could be pretty feisty. There were some sleeper teams, but we didn't expect this. I mean, there were some really shocking outcomes that I think have important implications for nationals moving forward, beyond just, oh, so-and-so team made it that we didn't expect them to, and now we look forward to seeing them trying to make pre-quarters. I think there's some big picture stuff to take away from this weekend, and that's a real surprise to me.
Yeah, and we're going to get into all of that. I think I want to start, though, Keith, with where we were right and where we were wrong. And of course, we did our Rapid React show live in the Discord for full and plus subscribers. So check that out. Become a subscriber. You can listen to our Sunday afternoon reaction to all of the things that were happening in real time. And you can go to ultiworld.com/subscribe to find out more.
We even had some special guests who had just qualified for nationals or just watched teams qualify for nationals. So there's even some special guest action in there too.
So, Keith, where were you right?
Yes, my favorite segment of any show. I'd love to just frame it. Few things in life are as good as being right. And a couple teams back me up on being right. Honestly, I'm going to start with one that was not even about a team qualifying. Like, it's weird for this to be a thing to have gone out on a limb on. But Brute Squad winning the Northeast, I feel like that's pretty important stuff. And you and I disagreed on it, which makes it all the sweeter. But I think a lot of people had kind of written off Brute Squad and were high on Sixers. So I think them coming back, getting the win in the way that they did, pretty meaningful. And I'm happy to be the one to have called it.
Yeah, that's one where I got it wrong. I mean, I think I underestimated the potency of this Brute Squad roster at full strength. We know they added Lev Kowalczak for regionals, and seeing some of the footage, hearing about how she was playing in the tournament, it's very obvious that she's going to make a huge difference for them. I mean, the real question for Brute Squad is now okay, how good can they be? Because, we saw them look like they'd taken a step back when we saw them at Pro Champs, but now, when they're full strength, okay, I mean, is this still a team that could win a championship? I don't know if I go that far, but certainly I got that one wrong. Calling Sixers, I did, though, get right that I picked all of the qualifiers in the women's division. So perfect so far, pending Nemesis next weekend. Now, not all in the exact correct spot, but I did get Ozone over Tabby in the Southeast. And then I think other places where I would say, I got it right. Sockeye winning in the Northwest. I mean, I don't know if that really feels like it's some kind of huge step out on a limb type situation, but arguably Rhino is the favorite. And I got Red Flag as well, qualifying over the bid earner Moondog. So a couple spots there, and plenty of correct picks. Keith, you went 38 for 44. I went 37 for 44 on actual qualifiers. But what that means is that we both got a bunch wrong.
Right. So let's just skip that part. We got some stuff wrong. That's the end of it, right? You're going to make me really go into detail on it.
Yeah, I'm gonna make you drag it out.
Okay. Well, let me get one more right in there, because I did also get Love Tractor out of the South Central.
Oh, yes, you did.
So I will take my credit for that. Now going on to what's wrong. I mean, we got to start with, I think for us, the most surprising result of all, which was Boston Dig failing to qualify. That one is just didn't see that coming. I couldn't have seen that. They looked like a top 10 team. They certainly looked the most polished of the non-pony Northeast contenders. Really surprising to see their season end the way that it did, with their offense just short-circuiting. So disappointing result for them and for me, and I'm sure it matters more to all of us that it was me that got it wrong than that they're not going to nationals. Another one in the men's division, Johnny Bravo losing a double wide. The kind of maybe a reverse situation with what happened with Brute Squad. I mean,
totally didn't see that coming.
Bravo looked like a semifinals contender, and double wide looked like a team that, might struggle to make it to the bracket. And what are we going to do with these results going forward? I mean, this is a shocker.
Yeah, I mean, we can get into that a little bit more later in the show, but I totally didn't see that coming. I have some thoughts on that game and on what that means at regionals versus what it means in a national context when we get a little bit later in the show. I got to say, I mean, you already said you got Love Tractor right. I was on the other side of that one. I picked Public Enemy. I got that one wrong. And it means that I have to make baked goods for Love Tractor at nationals. And I've had a lot of people chirping me. The Love Tractor folks were chirping me. I had some double wide folks in my DM straight away after they won. I play a lot of Ultimate here in New York with a bunch of the folks on Exist, and they've been giving it to me in the group me here, as I did not pick them to make nationals. I had Sprocket. Why did I pick the Choker team, Keith? I know better than this. I know better than this. This Sprocket team, man, I never should have gone near them.
And they lived up to the promise. Tough scene for Sprocket, but they warned you. They gave you all the warning signs.
That's what I'm saying.
Leading up to regionals, and you didn't heed them.
Terrible.
Yeah, that's definitely on the list. Although I don't know what you did to upset Texas. Like, we still thought they would be good. We picked Public Enemy. They're from Texas. They didn't do. Where's the Texas is back chirp for them? But yes, double wide, impressive. Definitely some strange stuff in mixed division too. I mean, you mentioned getting red flag right. I was on the other side of that. I thought that their lack of cohesion would bite them at regionals. They were not really competitive with BFG and Mixtape. So I'm not ready to crown them semifinal contenders because of Worlds, but definitely great to get. Moondog's a real team. Like, they're the real deal, and it's a tough region. So they're going to get out of it, and they're going to be a threat at nationals. Shine.
Well, they got to be frustrated, right? Because Red Flag should have played the series, or if they played the regular season, they probably would have gotten 4 bids in Northwest.
Yeah. Yes. I'm sure it's annoying for Moondog, but they were not the only Canadian team that failed to earn a bid during the regular season to walk away with one.
This is for sure the biggest surprise of the weekend, and we both got it wrong, and so did everybody, I would imagine, unless you're a Goat homer, because Goat knocks off Dig after Dig almost beats Pony in the final. That is such a classic. Pain. You go in to the final, you have a great game, you lose, it's painful, and then you come out flat in the start of the second game, and then you lose. I mean, it's just that's a tale as old as time at regionals. And this Dig team is a top 10 team in the country. They look like a quarterfinalist team with maybe a chance to make semis. They have this great offense, and then they lose to a Goat team that they're clearly better than. And I mean, it's panic button smash time in Boston. There's just no way around it. You got to do something different. Sprout gets just crushed. I know that's not a Boston team, but you've got Sprocket misses nationals. Slow doesn't win the region. Like, what's going on? Besides Brute Squad winning the region, otherwise it's been a total disaster.
Wow, it's dark times. Who would have thought? I think we may need to talk about this more in our kind of big picture segment, a little more about Boston.
We can dig in, but wow, I can't believe Dig didn't win.
Dig in. I see.
Yeah.
All right, let's go further down south to Shine at Nashville. That's one that we both got wrong. Felt like Shine had a real good shot of getting out of the, admittedly very deep Southeast, but here's a team with some of the most experience, some of the biggest star power, a little more established than some of these other teams, and they couldn't get out. I mean, they and Toro ended up playing each other in the game to go, and those were our two favorites to win the region. So definitely surprises coming out of the Southeast.
We both had Sub-Zero getting past Mad Men. I don't know how big of a mistake that really was, but neither of us picked Madison. First time that Madison will have a men's team back in nationals since Madison Club era. That it's kind of been a dark stretch for them, and Sub-Zero clearly in the full rebuild mode this year. But I still think it's pretty shocking they didn't make nationals, given how weak the region is. Just not enough talent this year to get the job done. We also both missed on the third bid out of the North Central in mixed. Kansas City United was the bid earner. You picked them. I picked No Touching, which felt like a crazy reach, but actually we should have reached even deeper than that and gone to CLX. Chad Larson Experience wins the bid out of nowhere. And it's in part because we saw Kansas City lose to another Kansas-based team out of Wichita to then have the Wichita team make the game to go and lose to CLX. Crazy. We knew this was going to be a kind of an open spot bid, but I never would have thought CLX was going to get back. They'd become another team to make it to nationals 10 times in the mixed division. Just a few teams have done that. I think 4 teams in the history of the division have done that. So congrats to CLX.
Absolutely. The credit where it's due. We knew that that third spot was not safe. But CLX was not really on my list of teams to think was going to take it. I mean, we saw them at the U.S. Open, which admittedly was quite a while ago, but they did not look like they were of the caliber to do this. So I'm very curious what they're going to look like in nationals. But it'll be just fun to have that name back on the scene. I mean, they were there when I was first covering.
I think they're going to be the worst team at nationals.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment.
I don't see where you find a team that's going to be weaker. Not that they're terrible, but they're just going to be the weakest team in nationals. Like if they win a game, it would be success.
But we've seen teams like that kind of find their way in, teams that we would have expected to be some of the worst teams in nationals. Moondog in their first appearances, super lame, like teams that sometimes it's easy to write off. They show up to nationals, and especially in the mixed division, this is less common in the other divisions, but in the mixed division, I'm not willing to put anybody completely under the bus.
I don't think I would have said Super Lame was the worst team at nationals, but I get your point. I think the only other big one, have we talked about it yet? Chain beating Ring?
We haven't. We have not talked about that.
Neither of us picked Chain to beat Ring. I don't think most people would have. I will give myself some credit and say that I did say that Chain would have a chance to win this game, that they're a good team, and that was the case. Now, a weird game because they had like a lightning delay in the middle of the game at 11-11, and Chain wins close one. So, you can hear more about this game in our subscriber Rapid React segment from Sunday. I think, when we talk Southeast, Keith, we'll have to dig into what we think this means. But Certainly got that one wrong. Great win for Chain.
Yeah, sticking in the Southeast, I also specifically, you had Ozone advancing out of the women's division. I had Tabby Rosa. So Tabby unable to get the win when it counted. They've lost Ozone twice this year, so there's not a lot of argument otherwise that they should have won that game or anything like that. So just kind of a youth movement for Atlanta, and I'm sure that they're glad to be back where that group can continue to grow.
All right, well, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to go region by region, break down what happened, and give you some thoughts on what we're going to expect to see from the teams heading into the national championships. Just a few bids left to be earned out in the Great Lakes this coming weekend. We'll also look ahead to that region and just reiterate the picks and analysis we made last week. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back on Deep Look. Sunset Lake CBD is a hemp farm located just outside of Burlington, Vermont. For years, Sunset Lake produced milk for Ben & Jerry's ice cream, and in 2019, they diversified and started growing hemp for CBD. Sunset Lake believes that their farm-to-table approach is the best way for you to get responsibly produced, high-quality CBD products that actually work. Sunset Lake CBD crafts topicals, gummies, oils, and more to help with stress, aches, and sleep. It's almost harvest time up at Sunset Lake, and I can tell you it's so nice to just take a CBD gummy in the evening, whether you're reading a book, doing a crossword puzzle, watching a TV show, wind down, relax at the end of the night, get a great night of sleep. You can check them out today at sunsetlakecbd.com and make sure that you use coupon code DEEPLOOK for 20% off all products. That's coupon code DEEPLOOK. Sunset Lake CBD, farmer owned, Vermont grown. Welcome back to Deep Look, and we're going to now go through the regions one by one and break down what happened this weekend. And we will begin, this time we're going to go in alphabetical order. We'll begin in the Mid-Atlantic. Keith and I actually got all of the picks right in this region, although we didn't get the order exactly right. Truck Stop, Temper, and Vault make it through in the men's division. Amp wins in the mixed division. And Scandal, Grit, and Parcha qualify in the women's division. Keith, we all two of us picked all three of the winners, Truck, Scandal, and Amp. I think all of these teams have a chance to do some damage at nationals. I mean, are all of these teams realistic potential champions? Is that an arguable position?
I think so. I never really looked at it that way. I mean, I guess I would have a hard time buying Scandal as a champion. They're a team that I think could beat a championship team, but I have a hard time seeing them as a champion. Now, sometimes things fall your way if you're a team like that. You know, you get the easy bracket into semis or whatever, or you get a semis opponent who upsets somebody else. Like that kind of thing can go your way. But they're the one that I probably am the least bought in order. I've been making my statements about Amp all year. I definitely think they're in title contention. Truck, they've proven it. Scandal, little step behind, I'd say. And I did get all the ordering right. I had Temper over Vault, so I'm taking credit for getting all the orders right here.
I think Grit got it over Parcha, didn't they?
Oh, you're right.
I think you missed there.
Good over Parcha. I missed on women. So we each had one out of order.
Yeah. So I mean, I hear what you're saying. Like Scandal got beat down by Molly Brown and Phoenix at Pro Champs, but they were missing some players. I think a team that has Claire Trope on it and a good supporting cast at least has a chance. But I agree with you. I mean, they're certainly the team with the longest shot compared to the others. I would have thought that was Truck Stop coming into the year, but they have clearly proven at this point that they are absolutely a team that can win the title. Like I feel like they at this point have as good a chance, if not more, than Pony and Ring. Like, and now I almost feel like is Machine further in the conversation because of some of the weakness we've seen from Pony and Ring. I know Pony just won the region, but they almost lost to Dig. They were down late in that game. And their defense has not really had a lot of answers for top offenses. We saw that happen at Pro Champs and we saw it happen at regionals. So I'm a little, I still think they're a great team. I still think Ring's a great team, but Truck feels like, they've really had the answers all year.
That is true. And it's great to see them win at regionals, which maybe isn't necessarily the toughest test around, but you want to see this team continue to play well because there were kind of the accusations that they perhaps had peaked early. So a regionals mistake could have lended credence to that idea. But it's an interesting idea because of the struggles of those top teams. Does that open the door? I mean, there has been no team more consistent than Truck Stop. There just has been in the men's division. So If you want to buy on truck stop, like I cannot argue against it. There's just no case really.
No, I mean, I think the only argument is that their defense doesn't get a lot of breaks. That's it.
But we know
win
they
a
have
lot of close games.
We know they have a bunch of defensive talent though. So I don't know.
They're good, but
yes.
I mean, they don't have a D-line like machines.
But they don't have it's not like they're weak on defense.
I think they're border on being weak on defense. I think offensively their D-line is very talented, but I don't know that I think that their actual defense is in the elite tier of the division.
Interesting. I don't know that I agree there, but maybe it's weird because I feel like you have a higher estimation of truck than I do, even though I think they might be more balanced.
Well, I just think that their offense has just been unbelievable.
Do you make anything of the 2-3 results in men's and women's? Do you make anything of Grid over Parcha and Temper over Vault?
I feel like I have to downgrade Parcha at this point a little bit, but what does that really mean? I mean, I think both of those teams, Grid and Parcha, are going to be hoping to make quarters. Probably the same thing is true for Temper and Vault. I think, to be honest, I'm not super surprised Vault finished third. They haven't been there before. And Temper at this point is now like routinely at nationals. And it's hard. It's hard to show up at regionals and win. And we've seen this in the Mid-Atlantic. Think about all those years that Medicine Men was really good and didn't make it. And
Men reference, love it.
Vault is, how much better are they than the MedMen teams that didn't make it? Not that much. So, I mean, what do I make of it? Not much. Seems about right.
But all teams that I think have looked a little inconsistent. Like they can't. They're not going to be able to hang with the elite teams mostly. So, not too
definitely
shocking to see that they're close together.
Let's move on to the North Central. MedMen wins it in the men's division. Dragon Thrust, Noise, and CLX in the mixed division, and then Pop in the women's division. Keith, you didn't say this, but you were wrong about this. You did pick Noise over Dragon, and Dragon was convincingly the best team in North Central.
That is true, and perhaps worrying. You keep thinking that the talent on this Noise team is just going to win out, and they're going to get better, and the results have just not really been there for them this year. I don't know what to make of that. Maybe I've overestimated the talent on the roster, but
I feel like their results last year, like let's say this same Noise team last year loses in quarters. Like, are you really then like blown away by the fact that they aren't like as good as they are this year?
I mean, I think they picked up some good players to add to last year's team that was successful, and they have players that I think are some of the best in the division. Those are generally the things I'm looking for in these kind of like elite mixed teams. They seem like there's a bit of buy-in after last year's success, but that just haven't put up the really elite tier results that I would expect from a team that when I look at them on paper, I think that they're in the conversation, but I'm like starting to worry that they're not really a semifinals threat anymore.
They lose to Dragon Thrust 14-9 in the final. Both teams had qualified once they got into that game. So, there is like a little bit of a grain of salt with that. We saw in the Southeast, the mixed teams didn't even play the final because they had both qualified. And we saw in the Southwest, Flipside ran open lines against Fury after having qualified. So, it's not always going to be the absolute clearest test, but I agree with you, Keith. I think we haven't really seen the evidence of a semifinals team. I have to say, I'm more impressed by the fact that we've seen such resiliency from Dragon, and, didn't talk that much about AMP just a moment ago, but also from AMP, who lose key players and yet are still top 5 teams. Like, there's no way to argue that they're not top 5 teams.
And are integrating new pieces, including some young players. Both teams are doing that quite well. And to me, that's a great time for them. I mean, I think that those teams are showing that they can get better, and that they now have a month to prepare with, quality leadership. So those are two teams that I would not be surprised if they overperformed at nationals, even what people expect of them.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think this is what programs do. You know, it's not like both teams don't still have great players. They do. But, you know, I figure Mexstroth leaves Dragon Thrust and you're like, okay, I mean, they're going to take a step back. And Amp loses Nikki Spivak and you're like, okay, they're going to take a step back. I actually think my claim is this, Keith. They are not as good as they were last year. But the overall level of the mixed division has compressed a little bit, with the top end coming down a little bit and the bottom end coming up a little bit. Then we're going to have a very competitive nationals, except for the fact that mixtape is going to blow everybody away. That's my current assessment of the mixed division. But I think, like Exist, for example, they're going to be like a bottom half seed probably at nationals. And they're good. Like they could beat a team like Dragon or Amp.
I think I agree with that. But I still think that Dragon and Amp, like we saw last year, like even when the teams were talented, they could put up disappointing results. Like this is, there haven't been a lot of times in the mixed division when it's like, well, these teams are a massive tier ahead of everybody else.
Right. Okay. Any thoughts on Mad Men and Pop?
Pop getting the work done. Maybe it looked a little nervy against Stellar. I thought that they looked solid in nationals last year, so I'm looking forward to seeing what they could do. They could be a bottom seed and get an upset. I think that's within the realm of possibility for them. But and Mad Men, no, I really don't have much on this. I do think you accidentally referred to them as Mad Men to start this segment after talking about Mad Men.
Did I?
In a little bit. It's, if that's their fault. Mad Men's got to predate Mad Men, I think.
Yeah.
Given that it was Madison Club prior.
I think there was a Mad Men team in the Madison Club era, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh man, someone give me the data on this. Which was first, Mad Men or Mad Men?
But I think Mad Men was first. Surely.
Either way, like you said, not the strongest region really in either of those divisions, but
terrible.
So,
Yeah. I mean, I think, you're going to have like the second qualifier out of the Great Lakes men's, Mad Men and GOAT trying to avoid going winless.
That seems fair. And I'm trying to decide, like, is this the region most likely to have multiple teams finish last place in the division?
No, I think it's very possible that both CLX and Mad Men could be over.
Yeah. Okay. So this is This is the region where we could see. I mean, you could have somebody finish at the bottom in every division.
I suppose. I mean, I think Pop is probably not going to finish dead last.
I don't think they will either, but I do think it's within the realm of possibility.
They could. That's true. They could. All right. Let's move on to the Northeast. Pony and GOAT qualify in the men's division, and it's Exist and Slow in the mixed division, and then Brute Squad and Sixers in the women's division. Very, very interesting set of results. A lot more drama than I expected. And yeah, Keith, I don't know. Where do you want to start? I feel like there's sort of interesting stories in each of the divisions.
Well, I think we got to continue to pull the thread here. We said we were going to dig in on what's going on up there. So we've got to continue to look at this because this is the surprise of the weekend in a lot of ways. And, Dig's results, they give Pony such a great game in the final. And yeah, we know the script. Yeah, the back-to-back L's, you're playing the team that just got a win and you just got a big emotional loss. Like, you would think that Dig would be able to handle that situation, especially as the more talented team. But they pushed the chips in the final and then couldn't get it done in against GOAT. They went down, 3-0 or something like that to start the game. Like, and their O-line, I feel like, has been their strength all year. So a really heartbreaking way to end for Boston there. And I share your concern about Pony. You would love to see them put away a team like Dig, but Dig's pretty, I still think Dig's pretty good. Like, maybe it's not so bad to play a close game with Dig.
No, I also think Dig is good. And, look, if this happened in a regular year, well, hang on, let me say that differently. If this happened in the Ironside era, like Ironside inexplicably loses, a close game in the game to go, or in the final, and then they lose close in the game to go. I think you just say, wow, this is like a shocking collapse, but like it doesn't mean anything about the bigger Boston scene. But I mean, the context here matters, right? We haven't seen an elite Boston men's team since Ironside. Really, since Ironside won the title. The year after they won the title, they took a big step back. A bunch of guys retired, makes sense. Dig started to pull some players from Ironside. Neither of them made semis that one year. Ironside folds. Dig is kind of okay, quarters level team. And it looks like they finally are taking a step forward this year, and then they don't make nationals. It's the first time we haven't had a Boston men's team at nationals since the 1970s. Think about that. That combination of stuff means you need to just figure it out. We need wholesale changes. What's going on? Too many players playing in other divisions, playing on other teams, splintered away over here, over there. I think you need to see consolidation happen for Boston, and I expect that we will following this because this is a debacle.
Well, I think you could trace it back to Ironside, right? The split after Ironside, was caused in part by, from my understanding, what I've heard is that there were people who didn't vibe with the Ironside culture, and that culture helped breed a title, but I think it also kind of fractured the scene there. And we've seen the same thing. The fracture is seen in mixed is a long-standing thing that I don't even know what the background is on that, but it persists. And, you still wonder what would happen in the mixed division if the players on Sprocket and Wildcard and Slow were all on the same team. But in the men's division, this split has proven to the detriment of these teams, even though this was maybe the best Dig team we've seen. So I don't even know. It's on the one hand, you kind of feel like Dig's doing a lot of things right because the team is of such quality this year. But then this is how it ends, and suddenly you second guess everything.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy. And the thing is, they're definitely a better team than GOAT. Obviously, you give GOAT credit for winning when it mattered. But I think the difference here, we've seen these kinds of games come up in the men's division at Northeast Regionals many times. But Pony was up against it against Sprout a couple years ago. Pony very nearly lost to Garuda back when Jeff Babbitt was just emerging as a player, had the disc in his hand, chance to win it. And, Pony survived, right? The top teams survived these spots. And we've seen Pony not make it in a year where they weren't very good, or they were solid, but they were not as good as GOAT and Ironside. But I don't think we've seen this in a long time where we have a top 10 team not make it. I would actually be pretty interested to know, when is the last time a top 10 men's team going into regionals didn't qualify for nationals? I'm sure, I know it's happened before, but it feels like it's been a long time since we've seen that.
Don't have to go very far to get there in college.
Well, sure. College is a different beast.
It's just down the road, in fact, if I'm not mistaken.
Anyway, Pony. Thoughts on Pony? No Ben Yacht this weekend, as Brian Jones told us in our sub bonus over the weekend. Jeff Babbitt is still out. He has not been playing. He didn't play at Pro Champs, didn't play at Sectionals, didn't play at Regionals. It sounds like he's going to be a kind of game time decision for Nationals, dealing with some concussion symptoms. So, Yacht will be back for Nationals, but are you concerned about this Pony team, or do you think that, they just took care of business and now it's on to trying to finish the double peak?
I'm concerned about them not having Jeff Babbitt. I'm not necessarily concerned about their results from this weekend. Sure, I would have loved it if they came out and dominated, especially a good team like Dig. That would have been great evidence that they're back to being the terrifying Pony that they've been in the past. And even without Babbitt, they're going to remain talented. But if we see Ring return to form and they have to go up against Ring without Babbitt, how confident can you feel? We know that it seems like the top of the men's division looks really strong this year and deep, and having that extra piece matters a lot, especially with the level that Babbitt was playing at. So that's concerning to me more than some of these results from regionals. Like I said, I think Dig's good. I think playing close with Dig, they could do better, yes, but otherwise, not something that raises red flags for me.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Pony's still very much championship level team, and I don't think anything changes for me this weekend. I'm concerned about potentially not having Babbitt. I think he was obviously one of their most important pieces at WCC and was kind of the reason they beat Ring. Like he was unstoppable against Ring. So we'll see. Exist, pretty convincing victory over some good teams in Slow and Sprocket at in the mixed division. I don't really know how far to expect this Exist team to go, but it doesn't feel outlandish to say they've got a shot to go to semis, does it?
It doesn't. No, I mean there's a lot of room for error with outlandish and a shot at, but I don't think that they have the talent. Like, we were hyped on this team coming in the year. They were like, this gonna take a big step forward team, contend for semis, and these results from regionals like help back that up after a season I don't think that lived up to that preseason hype. They got the early season win over Amp, but after that, aside from some wins over regional competition, they beat Slow and Sprocket, that Boston Invite. Like, their resume is not really that expensive, although maybe that impressive. Although maybe their 11-5 win over CLX looks better than it used to. I don't know. So good sign for Exist. I want to believe. I like what it looks like on paper, but 12-9 over Sprocket is their highlight result, and I think they're glad to have it. It easily could have gone the other way for them.
Yeah, I mean they're 24-2. They lost to Shine by 3 at Elite Select. And they lost by 6 to Slow at Boston Invite, although they beat them the next day. And they have the win over Amp. Honestly, that's kind of all you got. They just don't have a lot of results.
Right.
So, but, at the end of the day, they go 4-0. They take care of business at regionals. They beat Sprocket by 3. So, got to give them credit. Like, we'll see. Got a good roster on paper.
I'll be very curious how people respond to them when it comes to like the game and stuff. Like, what's the public perception of this team right now?
Okay, so then we got Brute and Sixers, and Bent kind of came back in the game to go and almost started to make it interesting against Sixers. Never got all the way back and didn't get a chance to tie it up. They ended up losing by 2 or 3 goals. Brute Squad beat Sixers on Universe 13-12 after giving up kind of a late run to Sixers. Do you think this win says more about Brute or more about Sixers?
More about Brute to me. Although I do think there's stuff to take away from Sixers. But Brute's back, baby. It was a brief respite. But look, Sixers is good. This region's good. Brute Squad did everything that you would expect of the Brute Squad of old. They beat Sixers. They crushed everybody else, including Siege. Beat Siege by 10. Like, Siege is a top 25 team, like nationals level team. The type of team that Brute Squad will be playing in pool play and potentially early in the bracket or whatnot. You want to see them get those kinds of wins. I mean, this is a good sign for Brute Squad, especially now that they've gotten in the pieces. Like, to hear that Levko was playing really well adds to that. It isn't just like, oh, they got good results on paper. It's you're hearing the things that you want to hear about this team, which is that Levka's integrating. So I think it's a great sign.
I mean, there's plenty of good players on this roster. That's clear enough. Anushka Beaudry, Leanne Hoffman, Sophie Knowles, obviously Levka, Tulsa Douglas, Jesse Grignon-Thomas. I still think that they've lost some of the key pieces, Cammie, clearly. But at the end of the day, this feels like a semis team again, especially after this result. I was pretty sure Sixers were going to win this game.
I don't think that was a super wrong take. Like, yeah, I'm glad I got Brew right, but like I think that a matchup between them, I would handicap it as most basically a coin flip, which is more or less what we got here, the 13-12 win.
So Sixers, is this a semis team potentially, or do you think that the like little bit of weakness we saw here, the loss to Scandal at Pro Championships, does that drop them a little bit in your mind?
It does. I think it confirms that Sixers is good enough to play in semis, but is by no means like a favorite to do so. And I think it gets us like in a larger big picture sense. Both of these results show us that after Fury and Molly Brown, and you could put flip side in there if you want. I think it's totally fair. But I think with a team that unproven, I'm not ready to do that. I think that there are more semis quality teams than there are semifinal slots. And those teams have proven inconsistent at points. We've seen Phoenix have inconsistent results, Sixers, Brute Squad, Scandal. So when you're talking about these teams, yeah, Sixers certainly has the ability to be there. I think by most people's estimation, they may be the second strongest of those teams. But we've also seen that they can have their poor moments. And if that moment happens at the wrong time in Nationals, it's going to be over for them.
Yep.
Field's too good for that.
Let's move on. Northwest, Sockeye and Rhino qualify in the men's division. Mixtape gets a big win over BFG, who finishes second. Red Flag beats Moondog for the third bid. And then Schwa, Traffic, and Riot qualify in the women's division. Mixtape clearly looking like number one, Keith. They lost to BFG earlier this season, but were just totally dominant here in this regionals victory. And to me, like, squarely proves them as the number one team to beat heading into nationals.
Just back where we started, we've had people complain that we talk too much about Mixtape and BFG. It's like, why? Like, are those the only teams in the mixed division? So beat them, stop them. There was a wild take on Twitter. I don't know if you saw this, but someone on Mixtape Twitter, which almost assuredly means it was Cam. That feels like I don't know if Cam actually does all the tweeting or if they just blame him every time, but tweeted that Northwest Regionals is better than winning Nationals.
Yeah, I'm not gonna certify that take.
Wild take. Wild take. I think somebody said getting somebody to take the keys away after that. But look, the BFG and Mixtape are both really, really good. And being able to comfortably walk away with the win, confidently to do so, is a good sign for Mixtape and their championship aspirations. They're the favorite until I see evidence otherwise. There's a lot to take away in this region, though.
That's true. I mean, the reason to knock Mixtape is because they played horrible at Colorado Cup.
Yes.
But, those results don't mean much to me. I mean, they lost 10-6 to Polar Bears there and then beat Polar Bears 13-10 in August when they had their team. So, like...
And they just finished Worlds, like,
yeah.
Come on.
Well, they hadn't even played Worlds at that point, but...
Like, they were prepping for Worlds.
Khalif was at World Games, and, like, I don't know. I just don't buy it. They're blowing teams out. They blow out Red Flag by 6. They blow out Moondog by 7. They blow out BFG by 6. This is the best team in the country, folks. They won the World Championships and looked like easily the best team at the tournament. I think they're not guaranteed to win, but they're clearly the favorite and look like a step ahead of everybody else. And I think they have the roster that shows you that they've got all the tools.
Yeah, maybe I guess I misspoke before when I said that there may not be a huge favorite in mixed. Maybe Mixtape really is that team.
I think they are. It'd be one thing if they lost to BFG here, then I think you have a lot more questions.
Or if it was close, if it was a 1-point game,
sure.
Okay, BFG's right there. But they did the thing.
They did the thing. How about Sockeye bouncing back, getting a little win over Rhino? I mean, not that Sockeye winning regionals should be some kind of shock, but like, they haven't exactly had the sharpest season so far. And so for them to get this win, and they win that game close, though, it was 15-14, but they'd lost to Rhino back at the Pro Championships by 5. So I think a nice bounce back, and they just smoked everybody else, including Furious, who they beat 13-6.
I mean, I want to see the tape on this game, to be honest with you. I feel like I got to see the tape to really get a sense of where things are at. On paper, beating Rhino is like, okay, you can calm down about Sakai. things are okay. But Rhino, because Rhino's good, but we've also seen Rhino have some shaky moments. So hard to say which team this is more indicative about. But good signs. No way to write it off completely.
Rhino comfortably beats Furious 15-11 in the game to go. And Furious kind of struggling. Like, they lost to those teams, but they also lost to Dark Star to open the tournament. That's not good.
No, that was one of the first, like, this is going to be a crazy regionals weekend, huh? Results that we got coming across the ticker.
13-12, Dark Star. I'm hearing Aaron Hahn, who retired for years after being one of the most impressive players on the University of Oregon, back and balling. We've gotten to the point where, like, there are probably people listening to this who don't know that name. That's right.
They don't know Aaron Hahn. He's like a legend now because he left the game at like right when he could have been breaking out and becoming an elite club player. Like, Will Driscoll's name popped up as a practice player on a roster too. So I was like, for a second, it looked like we might really have the return of next gen, but maybe that helped Dylan Freechild and Sakai get the win. I don't know. But yes, that was a crazy result. Dark Star. Imagine Dark Star qualify for nationals.
And over in Northwest, I think I said the wrong order earlier because Traffic won this tournament 14-10 over Schwa. Schwa beating Riot 13-12 in the placement game for second and third. Riot had already qualified. These three teams were way separated from everybody else, so not really any drama on who was going to qualify for nationals, but still, I think a nice result for Traffic to get a big 4-point win over Schwa, who's a good team.
Yeah, if you had told me before the weekend, like, I would have believed any order of these three teams finishing, and a Traffic team that we've been really worried about after the way that they played at Pro Champs, that this is a really valuable, successful weekend for them. I think showing that you can beat, like we said, solid, not amazing, but solid teams in Schwa and Riot and come out and rule over the Northwest, a strong region. Like, that is what you want to see from Traffic. Like, you could probably put them in the, like, all right, this is a right matchup in quarters, like, sneaks into semis team.
Definitely. I mean, I think the top team in the Northwest is always going to be a challenging team for a semi spot. All right, let's move on to the South Central. Double wide over Bravo. Both of those teams easily qualify in the men's division. Shame and Love Tractor out of the mixed division, and then Molly Brown sort of uncontested in the women's division. Not really sure there's much to say about Molly. This is a semis quality team. Regionals is a meaningless tournament for them and probably will be for years to come. And I saw on Twitter they are going to be having a game in a stadium, and they're inviting people. It's free to come out and watch them at night under the lights so that they can, like, be better mentally prepared for what they may face at nationals, which is that kind of game on a big stadium field with fans. You like it, Keith?
I'm here for it. I love to see them trying to do stuff differently, doing things that nobody else is trying to do to get better. We know that they're a team that has been there and not gone through, and they're trying to find ways to do that. And I'm all for innovation and people trying new stuff. Fly us out there. You're going to be on camera at nationals. There's going to be people. We'll commentate. We'll put up cameras. We don't even have to stream it. If you don't want your scouting film out, we'll just put the cameras up so you feel like you're really in the ESPN zone. And we'll make it work.
How about in men's? I mean, double wide 14-13 over Bravo. And had those teams played earlier this season? They had not. I think this is very interesting. I think I mentioned this on our Rapid React show, Keith. It is hard to win your region because the teams in your region know you well. They know your players. Typically, you have opportunities to see these players regularly, like in the AUDL, and or Western Ultimate League, Premier Ultimate League. Depending on which divisions we're talking about, it's hard to win. It's like it's hard to win a divisional football game in the National Football League. You just know the tendencies of the players. You're going to have a better read on the team because you just have played them so many times over the years, and the personnel doesn't change over that much from season to season. And I think that is what's going on here. It's a great win for Double Wide. There's no question about it. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I think that this upgrades Double Wide in some big way and makes me think that they're going to be like a big threat at nationals. I mean, they're a fine team, but they're still like a pre-quarters, maybe quarters team. And this doesn't change anything about really what I think about either of these teams, to be perfectly honest with you, Keith. I mean, maybe it's a little bit concerning for Bravo if you thought that they were like a semis team, but I don't think they are. I think they're a quarters team.
Well, that to me is the takeaway. Is they're if they were on the fence, if they were on the line, that this pushes them towards being a quarters team. They'd had a strong regular season. I think that there was good reason to think that they might be able to contend. They have some good results from their year.
The problem though, Keith,
to look back at, but
some of their best wins were over Dig, and those have to be looked at a little differently now, don't they?
I guess that's true. Yeah, but they beat Machine like
they beat Machine on the second day of a tournament.
Which is, I guess.
They do have a win over Truck.
Impressive.
They beat Truck 15-12. That obviously is a very nice win. And they played Truck close, but at Pro Championships, their wins were over Sub-Zero, Dig, and then second day Machine. They lost by 1 to Pony, they lost by 1 to Rhino, they lost by 4 to Truck. Those are fine results, but they're not great results.
That's fair. And on the other side, I'm looking at Double Wide's resume. And if they didn't lose that game to Omen, I think that they got downgraded a lot for that. They lose 13-11 to Omen in the first tournament of the season. But since then, they have only lost to Pony, a Condors team that they beat, and Sockeye. So, like, I don't know. I was kind of interested in who this Double Wide team could be. And to me, this shows a little bit of ceiling that maybe we hadn't seen otherwise.
I think that's fair. It's interesting. I wonder how much this Double Wide team had practiced together before August. A lot of these guys playing in the AUDL, and you then have, they only play their first tournament at Elite Select. And it's not like everybody lives in Austin together. So, I do think this is a sign of like maybe the chemistry's coming together. I guess what it does for me, it does, as we're talking about it here, I think you're right that we overly punish Double Wide for one loss, and they've actually been solid. And this makes you think, okay, maybe you're a little bit better than we were expecting. Like, I thought they might be one of the worst teams at nationals, and now I don't really think that's true. So, I don't know, squeezes them together a little bit. But I also think, again, like, it's tough to win at regionals.
Yeah, if you stink, tell that to Dragon Thrust, or, tell that to Brute Squad.
How about Shame gets the win? I don't think that's a big surprise, but Love Tractor does it again. I feel like Love Tractor, when they earn a bid, are horrible at regionals, and when they don't earn a bid, are unbeatable at regionals. I don't understand it. I don't know what's going on, but you got to give them credit. Public Enemy pulls they're one of 3 teams to make the final and then go LL out. Not good.
It's tough. I mean, it's never happened to me, I don't think, but oof. So doesn't even, I can relate. I can still feel it. I can empathize with that. But shout out to Love Tractor. This is a region that I think had a lot of talent. Like, I had them on my, like, one of my most exciting regions to watch. And so I think it's a great sign that Love Tractor got through a difficult region deep. But Shame might be the team that I'm the most like, okay, maybe Shame's really going to be able to contend this year.
I mean, I've been a believer in Shame.
I've been a skeptic, and this was a convincing weekend for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. But on the other hand, I think that they were the best team in this region. And did you really not think that? You picked them to win, didn't you?
I did. It's not that I didn't think that. It's more about what their national implications are.
Sure. Yeah. We'll see what happens at nationals. Shame just feels like a team that hasn't always been at full strength, and we're going to see that at nationals. All right, let's move to the Southeast.
It's gonna be a great year for the game. Let's just be real. Oh. The game's gonna be fire this year.
It's gonna be fire. Let's go to the Southeast. Chain beats Ring. Both of those teams qualify in the men's division. In the mixed division, I actually have to try to remember what the order of teams was. Space Force gets the win because they were the higher ranked team. There was no final played. Dirty Bird out of Atlanta is the second place team, and Toro wins. They beat Shine in the game to go.
All right. Can I offer clarification? Because we've gotten questions about this in Discord. So I want to make sure, because I know people hear that and they're like, what? When I first heard there was no final, I was like, can you even do that? Is that allowed? Are we going to see some USAU shenanigans here? Or somebody get DQ'd or something like that? It was like they had met all the check marks for two teams that don't have to play each other in the final in their last game of the weekend. It had been there had been lightning all day. They had already had lightning delays and stuff. Like it's not a big deal.
No, it's not. And I also had the same reaction, but because both teams had already qualified for nationals and neither team wanted to play the game, that's really the key. They were allowed to just skip the game. Now, I still think, personally, I think you should have to play a regional final, even if one team is not taking it as seriously or whatever. I mean, I still think you should have to play the regional championship game.
But what if you gotta wait 2 hours to play a regional championship in the mud after you've already qualified?
It's fair. I mean, I think if you had to cancel the entire day, then yeah, you should probably just say, forget it. We're not going to make teams come back and play it. But look, I just think you should have to play the championship game of a region.
I get it.
But they did meet all the criteria for not having to play the game. And so Space Force, as a result of not only having won earlier against Dirty Bird, but in the rules, technically they would be the winner because they were ranked higher coming into the tournament in the algorithm. They are the regional champs. This Space Force team has still not lost a game, Keith. How good are they going to be?
Oh, isn't that just the $1 million question? Yeah, they haven't lost a game, but what's the resume really look like? Let's take a look at the actual resume and see, is Space Force a team we're scared of? So their best results, if they get the win over Shine at regionals, but basically they haven't played out of region. Right? They played Select Flight Invite, and they played some mid-tier teams from other regions. Nobody who made nationals. Crocs maybe the best team that they played against. And they won. They won that game 10-6, so pretty comfortably. But, otherwise you're just looking at within this Southeast bubble. What if all the Southeast teams are not that good? What if they're all really good? I don't know. This is not a question I think we can really answer. There's no proof of what this team can do in the long run. There are some good players, some names I know, but I guess I sold the bag on Red Flag because they didn't have experience. Maybe this team doesn't. I shouldn't write them off either.
Look,
but I don't know.
This is where an objective, algorithmic based ranking system is actually quite beneficial. Space Force is ranked 11th, and that feels about right. They had a very close game with Shine. They had a very close game with Dirty Bird. And when you look at those teams' results in comparison to the rest of the country, I think that's what we should expect. We should expect Space Force to be somewhere in the mix for a quarter spot, but probably not beyond that. And yes, they're undefeated, so we don't know, but they also haven't necessarily dominated the horrible teams that they've played. They have close games against bad teams. So credit where it's due. They haven't lost a game. If this was the college football playoffs, I would be advocating for them to have a spot in the playoffs, and they are going to get a spot in the playoffs. So
Great.
They're going to have the chance to go out there and prove it. But what I think is that all of these Southeast teams are good, but none of them are great. But they're all close together, which is why it was such an interesting regional.
Yeah, no way the college football playoff is leaving out the undefeated Southeast team. Come on. This is not how it works. You obviously haven't been here before. But did you see the clip where they scored the game winner, a double game point against Shine in the semifinals to send themselves to nationals? Just a totally blown coverage. Just somebody disc watching and somebody goes to the front cone on them.
It's tough.
Oh my God, that's hard. I don't even know who the player was, so I wouldn't even call them out by name, but I don't even know. As a coach, brutal to watch.
I would just never want to be. You can't put yourself in that spot. You can't.
Why? Way too many people disc watch in the red zone. Way too many people, even at the elite club level. It's really bad. Everybody's trying to look at the poach box. Come on. Yeah, and Toro and Shine in the game to go. We didn't see it coming. We got it anyway, and they played a pretty close game. I don't know, man. Every time I feel like I want to believe in Toro, they just do something else that makes me want to get off the train. So do not let me go back to Toro, Charlie. Just don't. I'm not doing it. I'm not picking them to win. Nothing.
I mean, they have some good wins.
Yes, they do.
They have some really good wins. There's just no doubt about it.
And there's a bunch of talented players on the team. Like, I want to buy it, but don't let me.
I think you can't after this. Chain beats Ring. What do you make of this? This is one of the most interesting results of the weekend.
Well, Chain has that ability to play up that we knew that they did. I mean, they have a ton of playmaking, athletic players. They've got some great throwers. When they're on, they're going to be scary. And I guess we don't know if they're on. I mean, this was a really close game, right? You mentioned that it was 11-11 or something along those lines, and it got delayed, and then they came back. The final play is out there on Twitter floating around. Did you see that final play? It didn't seem like there was a lot of controversy, but there was like a strip call and a deep puck, I think, to Jeremy Langdon against Alex Davis.
Alex Davis was there, and it was like questionable whether it was a strip or not.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I didn't hear much about if there was a lot of like disagreement on the point, but I saw the clip itself, and it's hard to say from that. We're on the far. It's a far end zone from an end zone view, so it's pretty hard to say from the video. But be interested to hear more about it. But obviously, a close game that came down to small margins.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a very good result for Chain. I'm rewatching this clip right now. Langdon goes up first. It's really hard to say whether he stopped rotation or not. In general, in these situations, I tend to think that when it's not very clearly caught, that it should be considered not having stopped rotation. Like, you have to have, the definition in the rules is you have to have clear control of a non-spinning disc. And like, when it's bang bang, how do you have clear control of a non-spinning disc?
We've seen so many examples of people saying they were stripped when they, like, players overestimating how much control of a disc that they have.
Yes, because they felt the disc touch their hand.
I agree. Right. I agree with you that, like, generally I'm going to side with the defense because we've seen so many offensive players misjudge this situation. Not to say anything about this specific play. Like I said, we really have I really have no perspective on it. I can't see it. So
it's like a grainy clip on Twitter from the opposite end zone.
Coincidentally, there's blossomed a full on conversation about the play in our Discord as we speak.
Yes.
As we're recording this,
happening in real time. Yeah. So anyway, I think, Chain to me is a team that has the variance in their game because of the aggressive deep shots that they take to beat anybody. And I think that I put them as basically like a slight upgrade over where they were last year, when I thought that they had a chance to make semis, and they didn't do it last year, but I think they could do it this year. They're a good team. They're a high quarters team with a chance to make semis. And that's right where I put them now. And Ring has to get a little downgrade at this point. They did not play that great at Pro Champs, and they lose the region for the first time in like 8 years or something. To me, that is enough for me to say this team is not as good as we expected, and like they are susceptible to not even making the final. I don't think that the Pony Ring final that was felt so preordained at the beginning of the year is guaranteed at this point.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have a long resume. They didn't play that long of a season, and obviously, you can add in worlds where you feel fit, but they have really that truly horrible loss to Truck Stop, and then they beat Dig in consolation at a real game, but consolation game at Pro Champs. Does that look as good as it used to? They beat Sockeye. That's a good win, but the resume does not look like what we're used to for this modern iteration of Ring of Fire, for a team that was, like you mentioned, like felt like they were destined on a collision course for a championship. So concern is warranted at this point.
Yeah, got to put it in the broader. You don't
get 2 tournaments for World's Hangover.
Right. You got to put it in the broader context too. They get their doors blown off in the AUDL. Right? Now, it's not the same team as Ring, so with the caveats that are necessary there. And they're not close to Pony in the WCC final. They got beat soundly in that game. So with Pro Champs, with this loss to Chain, they're just not as good as they were last year. Maybe teams have figured them out. Maybe it's like they're a little too, people know what they're trying to do. They know they want to hit Yunks on the unders. And I know we've talked about this before, but it bears repeating. Alan Laviolette is not out there. He was a huge piece for them last year. Huge. So I don't know. I think that they're good. They're very good. They should still make semis. They know when they need to play their best, and it's not at regionals, but I still think that I feel like they're just not quite as sharp and polished as we saw them a year ago.
Yeah, there's definitely a lack of sharpness that is unnerving to see from this group, based on what we've seen from these, a pretty consistent group of players. So we have a good sense of what they're about, and we're not seeing that this year. A team we basically haven't talked about at all, Phoenix, in women's division. I mean, they gave up 4 goals for the entire 4-game series at regionals. Does this mean anything, or is this just what do you expect to happen?
Well, I mean, I don't know that I would have expected them to just destroy everybody like this. I mean, they had 3 games against teams that are not even like to belong on the field with them. But then they destroyed Ozone. But Ozone was basically playing open lines and clearly preparing to lose that game and go on to play the important game coming up. So I don't really know that we learn a whole lot here, but I do think that Phoenix is, right where they want to be right now. I mean, they're a very good team. They should be back in semis this year, and they're going to have, I think we learn a lot more about them in that pair of games against Scandal and Molly Brown in the bracket at Pro Champs than we learn here at regionals.
Totally fair. Just wanted to check in. We haven't really talked about them, and they had obviously a really successful tournament, but yeah, the competition just not really up to snuff, so it's not super useful.
Let's move on to the Southwest. Revolver and Condors qualifying the men's division. Polar Bears gets the bid out of the mixed, and Fury, Flipside, and Nightlock win the bids in the women's division. This is actually the only region, Keith, in which we got perfect picks with no mistakes at all, even with ordering. So I don't know what that means. It was fairly striated in terms of quality. Polar Bears took care of business in the mixed division. They look good. I think that they feel like a team that maybe has a shot to go to semis. And then obviously, Fury is beastly. They look like the favorite to win the national championships again this year. And Revolver and Condors are good, but not great. I honestly don't have a lot to say about this region.
That all tracks. I mean, I was curious how Revolver Condors would break down. I could have seen either of those teams winning and earning some extra credit, but Revolver looking like the better outfit. I'm gonna still reserve a little bit of skepticism about what Condor's long-term outlook is, even though they had a good pro GMs. Fury, yeah, they're still Fury. You got to come take it. You got to pry it out of their cold dead hands. I'm a little, no Helton for flip side, so it's you can kind of take their results with a couple grains of salt, but it's disappointing because you want a chance to see them get tested. You want a chance for them to test their mettle against the elite competition, given that their lack of experience together. But no, you're right. Not a lot of surprises here in the Southwest. Mischief a little disappointing. Obviously, getting to nationals couldn't be the bar. They could have had a good tournament and still not made nationals, but I think they were expected to be the top competition for polar bears and come up short of that.
I mean, I think we just need to continue to acknowledge Flipside's really good. They will definitely have a chance to be a semis team. They only have 4 losses this year, and they're all to Fury. They played open lines against Fury in the final, lost 15-6. As you mentioned, no Helton. At the Bay Area tournament at the end of August, they lost by 1 to Fury. They lost by 1 to Fury back at the beginning of the season. And they also lost by 10 to Fury in this Eugene Solstice final. And the thing is, if they'd only played Fury all season, then you'd be like, well, okay, they're probably okay. But no, I mean, they have a six goal win over Schwa. They crush Riot. They beat Molly Brown by 3. They have blown teams out. Now, they were 15-12 over Nightlock at regionals. Maybe that's a little closer than you'd like to see, but I don't know, Keith. I feel like we've seen everything we need to see from this team so far, and it's just can they do it at nationals?
Yeah, 15-12 in the context of we don't have our full roster. We don't have arguably our best player. That seems like it makes sense to me.
Yeah. Really solid team.
I'm very hyped to see what they are going to bring, because I have not gotten a chance to see them in person. And they're a new thing. They get a brand new toy, shiny new toy at nationals.
Yeah.
First time qualifier.
Coming up this weekend, we've got the last region on deck. It's the Great Lakes. Keith and I have identical picks. We both picked Machine and Omen in the men's division, Hybrid in the mixed division, and Nemesis in the women's division. Do you want to make any alterations, Keith?
I do not. You should if you want to win, but
I guess I should, but
you're locked out. Otherwise,
I believe in my picks too much. I'm not going to just throw away a pick for no reason.
Time to pick Trident.
Colonels, Trident. I mean, look, they got a shot. Omen is not a guarantee, but I think that they're the second best team in this region.
Fair. I'm with you. I have no changes I want to make. Boo on Great Lakes for trying to unsuper the Sunday, but I think it still counts. That was Super Sunday.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, unless something super crazy happens in the Great Lakes, it's not going to feel like we missed anything on Super Sunday. All right, well, that's going to do it for today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back with you next week. We'll probably be talking a little bit about some potential seeding implications, or maybe the seeding itself, if we get that quickly after regionals. And we've got a bunch more to get to as well as we start to look ahead to the national championships, which are now about 3 weeks away? Yeah, a little over 3 weeks away from today. So very excited. We've got some news for you as well about our streaming at nationals. Got some exciting things to report. So gonna get to all of that next week right here on Deep Look.